this is NJ, your host on this channel. Continuing our discussion on understanding the Rahu and Ketu axis in different houses. In this video, we will have our discussion on Rahu's placement in the 9th house and Ketu's placement in the 3rd house of our natal chart. So guys, this is a little bit tricky placement because all the qualities of Rahu are in contradiction with the 9th house and all the attributes of Ketu are in complete contradiction with the features of the 3rd house. Because as you know that if we talk about Rahu, so Rahu is a very rebellious planet which has nothing to do with following the law, or Rahu is also not that optimistic as Jupiter could make you, that do good deeds, surrender yourself unconditionally to the divine will and good will fall upon you, good things will happen to you. Rahu just wants to take shortcut, and Rahu is more obsessed about taking things and doing things or achieving things in the moment. So this just tells about, and not to forget that when we talk about all sort of anti-social activities, anti and illegal, unlawful, unethical activities, somehow Rahu is chiefly responsible for that. Now guys, and also because see, when we talk about why certain people have got these kind of afflicted mindset, because they cannot find peace. So, and 9th house in a way plays a very pivotal role in granting us the kind of peace or equilibrium which we are seeking for, because over here divine intervention, right set of mentor, right guidance is always awaiting for us. Now guys, when we talk about the 3rd house and the Ketu, so as you know that 3rd house, which is the house of our rationality, many astrologers also see 3rd house in order to see how you comprehend things. The way your mind functions, that could be 5th house, your emotions could be 4th house, but how you process information, your logics, your rationality somehow is connected with the 3rd house. Now you place a planet which does not have a head, who only listens to the heart. So Ketu's placement over here can also be in contradiction with the overall equilibrium of the chart, because when we talk about people who end into road rage or signing up a document without taking into pros and cons, and then the person for whom you become a guarantor, that person ran away and all the blame came to you. So all the victim of circumstances can also be seen with this placement as well, if this placement is not working in a constructive way. So guys, my objective was not to scare you, we will just get into the deeper aspect of this axis. So guys, to begin with, now for all those people who must be interested in knowing about this axis placement, so first of all, what role Rahu and Ketu plays in our life. So guys, if you actually want to understand your future course of action in this life, in which area your maximum growth is going to be there, or when we talk about what kind of experiences your soul has acquired in the past, so Rahu Ketu axis can be in a position to give you answers to all of that. Also guys, when we talk about all of our latent talents, something which is hidden but is there within us, all those can only be kind of extracted via the axis placement of Rahu and Ketu only. So guys, now let's take our discussion first where Rahu is placed. Now definitely I am a very optimistic person, so first I will take up the positive approach of this placement. So definitely guys, the way it has been explained like in our astrology books is that this placement can actually make someone very well equipped in anything to do with the foreign. Like guys, when we talk about because see, in the time when all these astrology text has been written with the Eastern philosophies in the mind, like there used to be a time where in India, even if a person is not only going to a foreign land, even if a person is crossing the sea, so that person now will be declared as an outcast and the whole community is going to boycott him. So that is the kind of time we are taking into consideration when we study Rahu and Ketu. So imagine that was the only reason why Rahu has been written in such a bad light. And in today's day and age guys, where even when we talk about acquiring all the divine spiritual knowledge only, so how many of us go to those retreats? These days we just remain glued to our social media accounts and we get maximum knowledge, even the divine knowledge, from the social media. So because of which anything to do with the foreign lands, for the foreign trade, foreign settlement, or interest in a different culture, different religion, different faith, so for all those point of view, this placement of Rahu in the 9th house can be considered as good. That's the one thing. I already mentioned this thing. This also gives you a very deeper edge in the human psychology as well. Like, let's say for example, if with this kind of placement, native choose to become a doctor, a psychiatrist, a psychologist, so native can be very good in that field if the overall chart is contributing positively. Now guys, when we talk about the flaw side of it, so you have to understand this thing, that when we talk about the house in our chart and the planet, which can actually connect us to something very deep, very subtle, so that always is the 9th house or the planet Jupiter. Now it's not like that when you have to be around a very enlightened person, he's going to give you some very deeper code from some very spiritual book, and that is going to change the course of your life. Being in the presence of someone who is of that enlightened status, so even the normal course of words or the normal speech is going to be carrying so much wisdom, but whether you have got that capacity, whether you have got that awareness to imbibe that knowledge or not, that is always dependent on your 9th house. And Rahu, for anything to do with the spiritual growth, for understanding the deeper fine nuances of the life, can be a biggest hurdle over there. Now guys, let me give you a very simple example. Like, let's say for example, apart from all the religious preachers I listen to, I somehow have got a very strong connection with Osho. So I hear a lot of Osho's preaching and all. So let me give a very simple example. Like on one of his lecture, he was talking about the significance of the surrender, like how universe can conspire to make you get what you have been eyeing for, but what is required is surrender. So he gave a very simple example, that, you know, when you are completely surrendering to the God, which can be known as the cosmic intelligence or can be called as the nature as well. So you take into consideration or take the reference of the basic elements of the nature. Like if in a water bed you will make a sudden hole over there, so suddenly what will happen? All the water from the surrounding areas will try to fill it. So he related that with the surrender in our human life, that only if we humans completely surrender ourselves to the divine will, so just because we have made ourselves completely hollow, so all the abundance around us will start getting attracted towards us to fill us with that. So if you actually want to absorb all these sort of divine wisdom, or you want to get benefited or progress, so 9th house plays a very pivotal role over there. So that is the reason we say that whatsoever good deeds we are doing right now, that is getting stored in the 9th house, and in our next life that will become our 5th house, which will be our past life merits. So if you actually want to be in this mode, so Rahu's presence in the 9th house can create a lot of hurdle. And like the way guys, you know this thing, that Rahu's placement in the any of the house is never considered as good for the living signification of that living signification connected with that house. Like the way, for example, I have got Rahu present in my 1st house, so it might be good for recognition, for scientific aptitude, for fame and all other areas. But even when it comes down to health, so all those accounts or like times when I fall sick, I do not have any understanding or reason for that. And allergies, infection, ups and downs in the matters of immunity, that is a typical trait of Rahu, because it is, in my case, it is placed in the 1st house. But when we talk about the living signification, that too with the 9th house, so elderly members of your family, this could be your teachers, this could be your father, so it is not very good for the well-being of them. And specifically if in the natal chart Ketu like Rahu, Ketu, their dispositor, Jupiter, Mercury, these planets are not well supporting it. So then it can actually make things worse, that whenever Rahu will get active in the 9th house of the native's life, it will not only make him rebel, or it might become a responsible for creating confusion in the consistent flow of your life, but it can also start creating problems for the father as well. So yes guys, regarding the 9th house, if I were to summarize, Rahu's placement in the 9th house can be considered as very good for the material gains, accomplishments in the life, anything to do with the foreign, association with the foreign people, getting benefited from the foreign religion, culture. I have met so many documentary makers with this kind of placement, where they have taken interviews of different philosophers all over the world, or even in the matters of travel business or new age teaching. All these days social media experts in their given field can be attached with somehow with the Rahu's placement working out constructively in their 9th house. But also guys, with this kind of placement, generally when we even talk about the remedies, so the behavioral remedy first is that whatsoever things you have to do, never do things in a haste, or never do things only looking at the immediate gratification or gain in mind. If you are confused, always take the expert opinion of people around you. Never ever disobey or mock people who are connected with any religious institution or who have got any religious authority. And guys, with this kind of excess, like whether when I'm talking on Rahu in the 9th house or when we will switch to the Ketu in the 3rd house, if you have a dog at a home, that is considered as good. Like it has been generally believed that whatsoever misfortune is going to come to the native, the dog is going to take that on him. So servicing dogs, having a dog at home is always helpful. Having gold in your body is also considered as good, like in the form of a gold ring or a gold chain, or wearing gold in the form of earrings and all can be considered. And guys, like the way in the older times, now things are changing, like lot many Hindu priests in the older times, or like I would say that in certain Guru Shishya Parampara within the countryside and villages in India as well, who follow all these religious doctrines in a very traditional way, they still keep a braid or a choti on their head. So but these days I see lot many new age fashion stylists and designers and trends where people are having that so-called Viking look and they are keeping those braid. So that is also considered as good for this excess. It actually acts as a remedy. Now guys, let's shift our discussion to the house where Ketu is placed. So guys, definitely the positive aspect of Ketu in the 3rd house, this is going to be a person who can be counted as a friend, specifically when there is any difficulty in your life and you need some help, and your neighbor or your good friend has got Ketu in the 3rd house, he will jump into your rescue with his closed eyes. And trust me, if you have in that person's, like someone who has got Ketu in the 3rd house, in his difficult times you helped him, he will never forget that. He will definitely come to help you, no matter what could be the consequences for him. So these people are somewhat those who always remember favor and who are ready to unconditionally help people in need. Like with Ketu in the 3rd house, this could be a good neighbor, not a good brother or sibling. I will come to that. So yes guys, regarding that front, this is considered as good. For Ketu in the 3rd house, definitely it makes you very brave, it makes you very courageous, it makes you very patriotic as well. So the being very loyal to the cause, to the favors and the friendship is not only connected with the living signification with the people, but also like if you are in army, if you are in any intelligence department and all, so you are going to put your heart and soul to the cause, you are going to have a strong faith in. Also guys, Ketu's placement in the 3rd house is not considered as very good, like specifically because what could act as your strength, that you are someone who can be counted upon. So that is also, or that could work in your can work against you as well, in the way that a lot many times it has been found these people jump into things without looking at the far-sighted consequences of it, in a way that not putting much of the thought, specifically because from the third house it is a very important house where we sign the documents, where we sign the agreements, and you are buying a, like whether you are taking a lease or buying a car, you are getting into any contractual agreement. So third house, seventh house, these houses plays a very pivotal role. And imagine you forgot to see the most important terms and condition, which actually backfired upon you because you were not paying attention when you were getting into that alliance. So all these elements becomes very important. And guys, when we talk about the positive side, so definitely because Ketu represents a male progeny, so even for having a male progeny in a form of successful, obedient, loyal to the family, to the father, to the parents, this could be a good indication. But when we talk about for the living signification, specifically with the siblings, so as you know that Ketu's placement in itself tells about that pertaining to the matters of this house, somehow your soul is connected with this house. And good or bad, like whatsoever experiences native might be going in this lifetime, somehow the answers of that might lie in the past. Like if you are going to have those siblings who are ready to sacrifice their happiness just for your well-being, or who have well taken care of you, this could be a positive Ketu in the third house. Or let's say for example you are getting into court cases, you are getting into bitter fights with your siblings, this could be some karmic account from the past. But guys, generally with this alignment, it has been advised that no matter how bad things are gonna become, but native should refrain from involving legal element in any of the fights with the siblings, because otherwise if you're going to file court cases or sue your own brothers or your siblings, the repercussion of that or the negative effect of that might affect your children, might affect your progeny. So yeah, because of that, whatsoever you want to do, try to solve that in a diplomatic way, or out of the court settlement is generally advised with this placement of Ketu in the third house. So yes guys, and also when we talk about all those people who are not able to stay firm in one place, like you know, being in a job where there's a lot of travels, there's a lot of tours are involved, or you're always running around for meetings and all, so those kind of line of work or nature of work can also be attached with the placement of Ketu in the third house. So yes guys, I guess remedies we have already discussed, which is about being very respectful towards the ninth house connected people, and servicing dog, being respectful towards the dogs, and any of the charities which are doing something for the dogs, supporting them, and having gold in your body or a braid. These are certain things which can be considered. And again guys, I have already mentioned this thing, I have met so many people who have achieved success in the foreign lands, who are very famous online teachers, guru, have been revered in their chosen field. So this placement has got a very positive connotation attached to it, only in the matters of how you manage your relations with the living signification connected with these two houses, and how virtuous or how like how much defensive you remain in the path of protecting your dharma, or being kind of very virtuous in the path of any of the religious teachings, that will always be under scrutiny with this axis of Rahu and Ketu. Again guys, like the way people say this thing, that zodiac sign also plays a important role, because with this kind of placement, let's say for example if Rahu is placed in the Gemini, in the ninth house, or in Virgo, or in Aquarius, that could be a good placement. Or Ketu is placed in the third house, in the Sagittarius, in the Pisces, that could be a good indication. But I still say the same thing, that ultimately eventually the result only comes from the house where planets are placed. Definitely in case of Rahu and Ketu, the dispositor also plays an important role, but just because they are placed in these houses, so, and which are in complete contradiction to their innate nature, so taking this axis seriously becomes very important, not only from the behavioral point of view, doing the remedies, but also, like I always include Vastu as well guys. Vastu also plays a very important role. So let's say for example, if you are going through the Jupiter Dasha, so you are wearing yellow sapphire, you doing all the Narayana Kvacham and everything, but the place where you live, you have placed dustbin in your northeast direction, or you have toilet in the northeast direction, so again Jupiter will not be able to function properly. So if you follow astrology, follow it comprehensively, in a holistic way. Otherwise, half-cooked knowledge, because eventually, ultimately, we are just trying to make peace with the planetary vibration. So imagine if they affect us through our thought process, through our psychology, so they strongly affect us in our living space as well. So when we talk about Rahu specifically, because Rahu is the major trouble causer, Ketu will not give you a chance to even blink if Ketu is not working constructively, positively in the third house. And guys, with this kind of placement, I would say that individually moon also becomes very important, because let's say for example, because ultimately we process everything, we perceive everything from the moon. So if moon is also afflicted with this placement, like for example, moon is like placed in the 8th house, in the 12th house, it is getting aspected by Saturn or being conjunct with Saturn, then it is definitely going to make the thought process very twisted, mind very pessimistic, negative. So with this kind of placement, for Rahu's strength, how well Mercury is placed, its dispositor is placed, and for Ketu's dignity, how well placed Jupiter is Jupiter aspecting this third house, all of that will become very important. And from the Vastu point of view, like the way I was talking about that, for the Rahu, we say the toilet at home has to be clean, does not have to be any wear and tear kind of signs, or your roof is also represented by Rahu. I would say even to an extent southwest direction as well. So all these things also become equally important, and you should not be having a non-functional electronic items, electronic junk at your home. So giving attention to all these things become very important. And also guys, when we talk about the gods to worship, so worship of Lord Ganesha in this axis becomes very, very important. Worship of Lord Kal Bhairava can bring wonderful results. And also some ferocious deities, like whether you talk about Mahakali or you talk about one of the 10 Mahavidya, today I guess is also celebrated at the time when I'm recording this video, is also the birth anniversary or the incarnation of the goddess Ma Chinnamasta as well. So worship of all these very powerful divine celestial beings can also be considered in order to get the best out of this axis placement of Rahu and Ketu. Again guys, for anything to do with science, with technology, with material aspect, with travel, this placement can work out in your favor. But for anything to do with the faith, I would say you have to keep on working with this axis. So guys, for further more updates and notifications on the divine science of Vedic astrology, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and like my Facebook page. Dhanyawad.